there is no dose of radiation below which there is no biological harm. There is no level that you can set below which there is absolutely no effect. So every little bit of extra radiation increases the harm to biological systems. This is particularly a human rights issue.
If the water after treatment is safe, can be used as a drinking water and used for swimming pool, why Japan use this water for its domestic agriculture and industrial purposes?
People in the Pacific are saying no. There's no amount of scientific proof that should be used to override their sovereignty and self-determination, especially when the standards are not able to answer the questions that really matter to them.
Welcome everyone to Global Minds Roundtable on Japan's nuke water dumping plan. There have been discussions on that the ALPS method is insufficient because it does not treat some radioactive elements. If discharged, contaminated water can move up in the food chain. Specifically, how would humans be affected?
The concern has been around the fact that this water contains not just, is likely to contain not just tritium and carbon-14, which can't be removed, but potentially a large number of other substances, radioactive materials, fission products. We really haven't seen yet a demonstration clearly of how the ALP system can work, even if repeatedly applied, to clean those other materials. So there's still much uncertainty about what will come out of that discharge pipe. Every little bit of extra radiation increases the harm to biological systems. And those harms are quite comprehensive. They affect longevity, they affect development, they affect fertility. In humans, the strongest evidence is around an increase in almost all types of cancer that continues for the lifetime of people who are exposed, even if the exposure occurred decades earlier. Not only does cancer increase the cause of the rates of cancer, but it also increases the rates of a range of other chronic diseases, and most particularly of heart attacks and strokes.
There are as many as up to 64 kinds of radioactive elements. This, of course, includes carbon-14. It has the possibility or potential to cause damage to human DNA.
The data that is being collected to answer the questions about whether or not this is legally allowable are not actually answering the questions that are of importance to people in the Pacific. TEPCO scientists are trying to answer research questions that are important to TEPCO and the International Atomic Energy Agency. The Japanese government and TEPCO have been really successful at shutting down public deliberation about people's concerns about radionuclides. When anyone tries to ask a question about, are these dominant threshold limits okay? Are the standards okay? When they start talking about this, they can get shut down in many ways.
IAEA is not a competent agency for ocean governance at all. At most, it is a side agency in this issue. The competent agency or agencies for ocean governance, let's take a few examples. IMO, International Maritime Organization, and International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. IAEA has no mandate whatsoever to issue a green light for Japan's discharge of contaminated nuclear waters. What IAEA can do is to set up the scientific standards and request and monitor whether these scientific standards have been followed or not by its member states. The final report and the statement made by the chief of that organization are self-contradictory and highly controversial. The Secretary General states that the treated water is drinkable swimmable. That is surprising. If the water after treatment is safe, as it is stated, can be used as a drinking water and is used for swimming pool. Why Japan use this water for its domestic agriculture and industrial purposes?
There are a lot of sociologists and social scientists who have been writing about this idea of nuclear colonialism. People in the Pacific are saying no. There's no amount of scientific proof that should be used to override their sovereignty and self-determination, especially when the standards are not able to answer the questions that really matter to them.
This is not normal discharge. These are not normal operations. This is waste material that's projected to be discharged over many decades and that will continue to accumulate on the site. This is particularly a human rights issue when effective alternatives that have been advocated by a variety of expert groups, long-term storage of the water, using the treated water in structural concrete applications where it has little or minimal exposure to people and the environment, in foundations of buildings, under roadways and bridges and so forth, haven't been adequately explored. There's also a huge history, I think, of lack of trust, loss of trust by the institutions in Japan, TEPCO, the government, the regulators, who in their management and response to the whole ongoing Fukushima nuclear disaster. The independent investigation commission established by the Japanese Diet came to the very firm conclusion that the Fukushima disaster was a man-made disaster that could have been avoided. Justifiably, there is very real basis for concern about the motivations and integrity of the organisations charged with managing this discharge, the government and TEPCO, because their record of public health and safety has really been very poor.